Hi everyone, we're going to begin our new project today, window observation. I have about 6 or 7 slides here for you to look at, all different artists that are using the window, looking out the window to make their paintings. You will be doing the same thing in the next few weeks, doing several drawings, looking out the same window, creating a series of different drawings. So to begin with, I have 2 drawings. We have a Pierre Bonnard and a Henri Matisse. Both artists were friends, and both artists use a lot of color and beautiful painting style. So in the Bonnard, we see a large rectangle of the window. We see, for me, the focal point immediately brings me to that very strong blue sky with the dark blue shade that cuts right almost a quarter in half, bringing our eye down the other side of the window, all the way down to the interior of the room, and then we see a figure quietly sleeping in the corner with the little kitty cat. So the focal point for me is definitely the sky looking out the window, and he uses this window as a frame to frame or structure his composition. Matisse is doing the same sort of thing, where he's framing his composition with the French doors looking way out into deep space. Here's another Bonnard painting. He uses bright yellow, that beautiful, brilliant, bright yellow, very warm painting. We see in his picture frame where he has the window looking out into deep space. We see a mountain, a small mountain or a hill, and a small boat in the distance. But he's also showing the interior of his home. That's something you'll consider, whether you want to show in the interior furniture, the walls. It's going to be your decision as to what you decide to leave in and what you decide to leave out. That's completely up to you. So the first thing you'll do is you'll take a tour of your home, studying all the views of the window, out each window. With each view, you'll quietly consider, what do you notice? What shapes do you see? How do these shapes intersect? And what will be important to your composition? So you'll decide what your narrative or what your story will be. This is a contemporary artist. Her name is Lois Dodd. She's in her 90s now, but she's very famous for doing a lot of paintings from views from her window. So she played a lot with the structure of the window itself, showing the actual window panes. Sometimes she actually had window reflecting in the painting. Here we see a very simple composition. She begins with this strong vertical bar that divides the composition almost in a quarter, and then the strong diagonal of, I think it's an amaryllis plant. And that is so simple. Such a simple device. So she is editing. She's deciding what's important, what isn't, what she's going to leave in, what she's going to exaggerate, perhaps. So with this very simple composition, she has a very close palette of colors, just a lot of subtle whites and grays that contrast this beautiful red, the strong red and the strong green, really bringing us to that focal point. And I think you all know about focal point. We did a lot with that in your abstractions, so you're going to be using that with this composition as well. Here's another Lois Dodd composition. She adds a lot of abstraction into her work. So here you can obviously see the symmetry where she has the big cross right here, and that is the window itself. And if we notice that that cross is right in the center, or very close to the center, but the building is off center. And in this building are these rectangles, these bright yellow rectangles. So the geometry of that play of those 4 rectangles is really important. You might even notice how this one yellow rectangle is not quite the same. It's a little bit lighter in value, and it's a little bit warmer. So I love that. Very simple. She also has these 3 yellow rectangles just floating out there. So we know that's a building, but she obviously eliminated a lot of what she saw. So the other thing I want to point out about this is that this painting is that you can consider the time of day that you want to do it. Maybe you'll see a great sunset from one of your windows, or you have a favorite window that you always view the sunset, so, or sunrise, or an evening reflection. So that'd be something you can consider when you're making your decision of what window to draw out of. Here's another Lois Dodd. The window acts as a compositional device, creating a primary focal point. Remember how we did that? We drew a diagonal down and then another diagonal to that point. It's almost exactly right there. And there's that little latch right there at that focal point. I thought that was really cool. So something else to read in this painting is that she's got the brick architecture, the strong cross of the actual window frame, and then the very sliver of nature, the bright nature on the side, just showing us a little bit of a nice sunny day, perhaps. Here's a Serbian artist. He's looking from an aerial point of view, all the way looking down. Look at the top of the tree, how he painted the top of the tree looking down. That's a really cool perspective on that. So these become very abstract. You almost don't notice that this is a street. It just looks like a stripe with small rectangles around it. So looking down could be a really interesting way of dividing up your composition from an aerial point of view. If maybe you have a cool window from, if you have 2 stories to your house looking down, could be interesting as well. Marc Chagall did a lot of paintings that were very imaginary. He painted mythological subject matter, and he also did some biblical scenes. But he was incredibly creative and just made stuff up. So I'm hoping that eventually with your painting, with your drawings, you'll be able to create your own imaginary narrative with maybe floating people, maybe buildings, maybe you'll put, the ocean out there in the middle of the desert. Whatever you think that would make it interesting. Lots of bright color, whatever you would like to do. I think it's completely up to you. You're the artist. You're going to be deciding what you think is important, what isn't, what you want to include, what you want to exaggerate. Maybe putting your animals in, your pets would be really nice too. There are 2 artists, Richard Diebenkorn and Henri Matisse. Diebenkorn was greatly influenced by Matisse, and he did a series of abstract paintings from Matisse's interiors that Matisse made when he was alive in the 19th century. Matisse was a very influential painting for a lot of contemporary artists. So eventually you will be making a drawing that will be an abstraction looking out the same window. We'll get to that in a second. So what you need is just a pencil and a paper. You're not going to need anything more than that. If you have more materials, that would be great. Then of course you could use those as well. And we're going to be making 4 different drawings from the same view. So I want you today to do 2 quick blind contour drawings. You know what that's like. You've done a ton of those. So I know you know what I'm talking about. And then you're going to do a contour drawing out the window. That's just going to be line drawing. The next drawing in a couple days, we'll do a line drawing making lots of mark making in a full value scale. And I'll talk about that in a couple days. The third drawing, we'll be making a new drawing, all new in color. And the last one will be an abstraction of that same window, an abstract composition. Okay,